there. Good evening. Please welcome our special guest, Kamran Pasha. How are you doing, Kamran?
I'm great, and I'm delighted to be on.
Thank you. I'm just going to introduce the host, Matt. Sorry, I kicked him from the studio. Then.
It's okay. It's okay. We introduced the one that matters, so it's good.
Yeah. Welcome, Kamran.
Excellent. Thanks very much for joining us. I just wanted to kind of go back to the beginning. I always like to go back to the beginning with an easy question. So, Kamran, what was the first thing in terms of entertainment, whether it was like a book or film or a TV show that you saw and made you think, I'd like to do this?
Oh, I can tell you the answer to that. It's a very specific answer. I had immigrated from Pakistan back in like 76, right? So I was about 4 years old, came over, and I essentially learned how to speak English from watching cartoons and sitcoms in America, right, as a kid, right? And there was a TV show which was actually based on a British comedy, A Man About the House. Remember the British comedy back, decades ago? It was about, a man living with two women, which is very risque. And then America adapted that and had a very popular comedy called Three's Company, right? In the United States, right? And so I was watching that show, and I was too young to get that it was a risque show, and I didn't get any of the innuendos, right? But I remember watching an episode. I must have been about maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was watching an episode with my older sister, and I remember this vividly. I said to her after watching the episode, "I'm going to do that someday. I'm going to make movies and television," right? I said that to her, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, we're Pakistani. We don't get to do that." Right?
Really?
Not for us. It's not for us. And so even that, she must have been 8 or 9, and even then she thought, okay, these are the limitations of what's possible for people background, right? And so, I remember that vividly, and now this has been my profession for 20 years. So it looks like you
proved them wrong. You proved them wrong.
I mean, but she wasn't wrong that we didn't get to do that, and I had to force her through that, right? I had to force her through that obstacle. So
yeah, definitely.
So what was your path in? I mean, I know we spoke a little bit just before we came on air that you had you'd studied over here in England and stuff like that as well. So were you on a path to do writing through your educational path?
Well, I was always naturally a writer. I think when you're an artist, you sort of always have that. And I was writing short stories when I was in elementary school. I mean, I got my first murder mystery published in the school newspaper in 5th grade, right? And I was a big Agatha Christie fan, another UK, genius. And I loved all of her, 10 Little Indians, all of her great books. And so I wrote an Agatha Christie style murder mystery when I was maybe 10 years old, and got that published in the little school newspaper. And so I've always been a writer, but I never saw any way to do that professionally. And I went to college. I actually studied religion there. That's what I went and studied in the UK. I went to Dartmouth in the United States, and then they had an exchange program with the University of Edinburgh's religion, divinity school, which was a wonderful experience. So I studied world religions just because that was something that interested me, and it also was and is the greatest storytelling in the world, right? I mean, these are stories that change people's lives today after thousands of years. And after college, I did find a way to use the one skill that I had, because people of my cultural background in this generation have largely been being fed by their parents into medicine and engineering and the hard sciences. I'm sure it's also true in the UK, and so I never had those skills or interests. And when I graduated college, I actually ended up working as a journalist for several years in New York City. So I was writing professionally, and I was getting paid to do it. And then I went back to graduate school. I got a law degree and an MBA. So I got all these degrees, and I was bored out of my mind. And in an accounting class in business school, I wrote my first screenplay, a horror script, just to pass the time, to get out of boredom. And after I graduated, I was working as a lawyer in New York. And I thought, I've got the script. What can I do with it? And I sent it out to agents unsolicited, right? I didn't know any agents. I just found a book with the names of agents on it, and I just sent them emails. And most of them didn't respond or rejected it immediately. One person read it, really liked it, called me and said, "I'd like to represent you." And I was like, "You'd like to represent me? Is that for real?" And then he put me in touch with some people, and I sold a couple of scripts to Paramount. I was like, "Wait a minute, did I just do that?" And then that was in 2001, and I moved to Los Angeles and quit my job as a lawyer, and I've been working steadily as a screenwriter for 20 years now.
Amazing.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
And just going back to journalism, because this is an interesting topic from my point of view, is that like I'm very much a fan of 70s movies and old school Hollywood, and journalism's always been an important thing for me. And when you look at stuff like, All the President's Men and the fact that that journalists were able to be true investigative journalists in those days and expose something that went all the way to the top. I'm not sure whether that would ever happen in today's.
Well, you're right. I've watched it evolve. I mean, when I was a journalist in the early '90s, so it was Clinton had just been elected, right? And and I actually had a lot of fun. I took pride. I was working on Wall Street, and it was for me. I was a little bit of an investigative journalist, and the idea of finding out information that other people didn't know. There was pride in that. There was excitement. You could advance your career. But I've watched it devolve in the last 20 years into essentially stenography, where you want it's access journalism. You want access to the powerful people, and so you don't try to threaten them. In fact, you kiss their butts and you become their spokesman. My sister teaches journalism at Penn State University. She was a reporter for CNN once, and now she'll affirm this as well. The journalism is changing in very ugly ways. In ways that the whole generation of people are being raised to think literally just spouting whatever the official authority is journalism. I mean, that's the exact opposite of it, and it's tragic.
We see that in political journalism as well as entertainment journalism, which we'll probably get a bit more into later, especially with the kind of podcast we're doing. But it's. Do you think it'll ever change? Do you think it'll ever swing back where you'll actually get real journalism again, or
it will, because the process has begun. I think especially this year, the problem was that the entire media system had reached sort of a calcification of political agenda during the last 4 years in opposition to Mr. Trump, right? And now that he's gone, what do? They have to feed on something, right? And so they're turning on each other. So we're now watching the United States, all the people that were held up as heroes by the journalistic community during, all the lockdowns and everything else, the major figures, because they were opponents to Mr. Trump, they were then held up by the system as heroes, and they're all beginning to crumble now as journalists who they don't have Trump to go after, so they're beginning to try to find something to feed. And so, in California, Governor Newsom is suddenly becoming a villain. He was always a villain in my view, but now they're picking up on it. And now the big one is New York State. I knew a year ago that I'm from New York. I grew up in Brooklyn. I knew a year ago that the Governor Cuomo was a dangerous, psychopathic guy who had killed a lot of people. And my friends in Hollywood parroted the CNN line of he's a hero and he did the right thing and blah blah blah, and now the system is bringing him down. It's going to accelerate. The whole system is going to start collapsing because they don't have Mr. Trump to focus their energy on, so they'll turn on each other.
So the eye of Sauron is shifted.
Now it's shifting on itself, and we're beginning to see, and people are again realizing the joy of investigative journalism. The reporters that are beginning to realize, what if I break free of the standard narrative? I might actually get a scoop. The idea of a scoop doesn't exist anymore. I might get a scoop, and that suddenly, whoa, wait a minute. I just beat the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and I put out this story, and it's bringing down a powerful person. Wow, I can do that. I was like, yeah, that's what journalism is.
Yeah, that's exactly what journalism is. And I think, like you say, I think the independence of news and journalism in that way is helping drive that, because there's many people that are now getting their news from alternative sources other than the mainstream. The hope is that they can just keep going before the powers that be start stamping down even further on independent journalism and content creators.
You can try, but as someone pointed out, the internet resists censorship by its nature. You can quash it here, it will pop up here. And the more you quash it, the more people go, what's this thing they don't want me to read? I'll go to BitChute. I'll go to Rumble and find it there. And the information still gets out. And people are still talking about it, amongst each other. So that's the thing, is the system they've created is actually not controllable.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. Yeah.
Which leads us to Star Wars, where there's been a narrative that's been put out for several years now in the same vein. And it's a narrative that Disney and Lucasfilm have been unable to control. And I worked at Disney. I was the head writer for the Tron Uprising animated series. And so I've experienced Disney from the inside. And
huge Tron fan. So thanks, Pat. thanks,
yes.
Kevin.
So, I mean, and while I'm not at the scale of Ms. Carano, and she's incredibly, Gina Carano, incredibly courageous, I had a little bit of courage. I stood up to things I didn't like that were happening inside of Disney when I was there, and that I thought were screwing up our show, and I was let go. They're like, okay, you're going to actually question how we're doing things. Yes, we're losing money, and we are giving power to the wrong people, but you can't actually point that out.
You can't point that out. And when you do point it out, they'll let you go.
Yeah, they let me go. That was 10 years ago, and it's gotten worse since then. So
yeah,
absolutely.
So how bad is it behind the scenes in Hollywood, Disney, Lucasfilm? We've got a little bit of an insight through Gina Carano's sit-down interview with Ben Shapiro recently.
Yeah,
and by what she's saying, it sounds like a hellhole. You've got to toe the line.
At this point, it's a cult. You know, it was always a power play. I mean, the 20 years that I've been here, it was always people pushing their agendas, but now it's become a place where it's, you know, she was pointing out, I mean, there's now politically correct training. If you're not saying the right stuff, you got to talk to HR, which is going to tell you what the right way to think is, right? If you want to keep your job. And so we are now devolved to that stage. And, you know, this all happened again during Mr. Trump's era. It all became this psychosis that developed in the industry, where they had decided we all have to toe a specific line in order to defeat what they saw as the rise of Nazism, the return of Hitler, right? That's how it was portrayed inside the industry. And so when you're facing that moment, you must all unite. And anyone who in any way questions the system is part of the enemy, right? We got there, and in many ways, Star Wars narrative was guided by this kind of bizarre thinking to make certain political statements, which I promise you, the actual people implementing these things don't follow these things in their private lives, don't actually do the things that they want the rest of us to do, but they are either controlling the narrative for praise and power in the system, or they are being told by someone who has power in the system, do this or you lose your job.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of like, it was almost a repeat of McCarthyism, isn't it? In some ways.
But America's always been like that. I mean, I love this country. With all of its flaws and all of my criticisms, I still love this country. And I with respect to my UK friends, I still think this is the best country in the world, or at least has the capability of it. But but this country was founded by the Puritans. It was founded by people that were frankly religious fanatics who had, they were fleeing religious persecution only to persecute other people, right? And then the Salem witch trials are the defining cultural event that defined this country. The two Salem witch trials, and then the annihilation of the Native Americans and the enslavement of Africans. Those are the events that define the birth of this country. And so those pathologies, that Inquisition mindset, has always been a dark side of this country. And it popped again.
That's very true, and plus, I think it is compounded also by the fact that you know, to a certain extent, we live in a post-fact world. So, in some ways, history is kind of being erased and not being able to be used as a reference point. Or if you are using it as a reference point, then invariably, then you'll get some other kind of label because of what you're talking about.
Well, it's exactly what your fellow genius, UK genius, George Orwell wrote about, right? I mean,
That's right.
It's exactly 1984. I mean, it's following that script literally. And the interesting thing about, if we look at 1984, what inspired Orwell to write this? He wrote it in 48, 49, right? He just flipped the digits, 84, right? And it was right after the defeat of Nazis. That wasn't the thing that was in his mind. It was the rise of communism after the rise of Stalinism and the spread of it through Europe. And he began to see that it was the leftists that were now attempting to control narratives and continue on the totalitarian thing that we had just defeated, right?
Yeah, even though Orwell himself was on the left of politics. Yeah. Orwell himself was on the left of politics, but he could see, he was writing about how far that could go.
Yeah, exactly. Right? His concern was, he might, I mean, remember conservatives in the UK are liberals in America, right? So you guys are already inherently left of this country. But Orwell,
that's true.
Yeah, Orwell understood. He saw, I mean, his entire thing, if you read 84 again, which I think everyone needs to read 1984 again, he talks about the history of it. Is essentially that totalitarian world was created by workers' rights groups, right? It was people pushing progressive agenda. It's in the book, right? That's the history that the main character vaguely remembers, and much of it's been erased. But it was not a nationalist Nazi type fascist. It was people fighting for workers' rights that created this world of
And the party is INGSOC, which is English Socialists. That's the name of the party, isn't it? In the book.
He was 100% correct, because he knew, because none of this is shocking. I mean, you go back to Lenin and Stalin. I mean, they were running things that way already, and that was the system that they were trying to put out there. And by then, Mao had already taken over China and defeated the nationalists. So you could see that these guys, this is how they operate.
Yeah.
And they're back.
There's a related question there, just coming in on comments. Cameron, how much of this is China's influence and elite people here being jealous at the level of control and authoritarianism?
Well, I'll answer, because I've actually worked in China as well. I worked in Beijing. I was invited there a few years ago to develop a spy series. I worked on a TV show Nikita, and they wanted to do a similar spy series with a female Chinese lead, right? So I'd never been to Beijing, and I was like, wow, I got to go. Went there. I worked with Chinese writers with a translator and actually helped them create the show. And it ended up being premiering on their version of YouTube, which is iQIYI, which ended up having something like 500-600 million viewers. So
wow,
China, that's decent, I guess. For us, it's crazy, and it was hugely successful. But that show, that experience in China, taught me a lot. I love the Chinese people, and I saw the horrific oppression that they were in. Right, they are trapped in the system. They didn't ask for the system. Mao came there and said, "This is your system," right? And that here took all their guns away. They couldn't fight back, and so that's they're in that system, and it's not a good system. Every one of our scripts for that show had to go through Chinese government censors, right? And we had to constantly be aware of what the CCP would say, because they never had actually, in the history of China or the history of Chinese communist China, had never permitted a television or now it's YouTube, but a television series that would focus on espionage. That had never been happened in China, because espionage doesn't happen in the People's Republic, because we got it all clamped down, right? That's the official narrative, right? So the idea of espionage happening threatens the narrative of the CCP being completely in control. So we couldn't even, in my spy show, we couldn't even make it government espionage. It had to be corporate espionage. Essentially, it had to be evil American businessmen trying to steal Chinese secrets, right? And that was it. And you couldn't go anywhere. The government was, of course, the heroes that were stopping this, right? And so whatever. But that's broadly to give that I have some experience directly of this. And then, Hollywood has been kissing China's ass for years now, because they hope that they could make a lot of money, because it is a massive market. And China knew that they had all the leverage in that. So they put all these restrictions on the kind of content that could be shown in China. And we saw that in Lucasfilm, because the Chinese Communist Party is racist. I would not suggest that Chinese people are racist, but generally the CCP is racist. And so can't have black people, prominently portrayed. And so that's why, John Boyega shrunk down to nothing on the posters, and that's not because the Chinese people don't want to see him. It's because the CCP doesn't want to see him, right? So
this is what's annoying a lot of fans at the moment. It's the blatant hypocrisy coming from Lucasfilm when they do that themselves, but then turn around and call fans racist for not liking a particular movie.
Well, because they know that, because they know the zombies out there will just parrot that, because that's the trigger word. All these virtue signaling zombies, these 18-year-old kids who were poorly raised by their parents, right? And poorly raised by their teachers. Now they have no purpose in life, and their purpose is to become crusaders for something, right? Yeah. And so whenever you use their buzzwords, they'll jump onto it. And so Disney knows what it's doing when it does that kind of propaganda. And, and the rumor is, and I believe this rumor, the rumor is that the attacks on Gina Carano, the fire Gina Carano hashtags all came from inside of Lucasfilm. I 100% believe that, right? Because the average moron isn't, the average, woke crusader moron is not following her, doesn't care about her, doesn't think about her. So some person sitting inside Lucasfilm creates that tag, gets some marketing people to push it, and then the mob starts, right?
So
that, and it's
I can believe that. I mean, I was saying this before I came on air with you, Cameron, that the thing with this Twitter mob is that the exact same people are running Lucasfilm at the moment. So kind of got no chance. Yeah, them inventing that hashtag.
Yeah, but I think
they've
gone too far. I mean, I think when Gina Carano was let go and the way she was let go and the excuse that was used and the reaction to it, I said immediately, this is actually the Black Swan event that, in my view, is going to end Ms. Kennedy's control of Lucasfilm, and because this is not going away. It's spiraling, and it's becoming a national and a global Here we are. You're in the UK. It's a global conversation now about our future as consumers and our future as human beings, our ability to be honest, because all she is honest, and she's being lied about and misrepresented by people that are trying to corrupt what she's saying. And we're at a place where everything is a lie, and people are now responding to that. And this has gone a step too far. I mean, the rumor is that Miss Kennedy is in hiding, essentially, and I actually think that is true. I believe that this is an event that will lead to her stepping down early.
Yeah, everything that Lucasfilm are putting out there in the media right now is getting a lot of heat. Like the recent YouTube channels, videos that they put out on their own YouTube channel are getting a lot of dislikes compared to the likes.
Yeah, and they've resorted to propaganda stuff, cheap propaganda stuff, like using the trades, like the Hollywood Reporter, to put out what they thought was a hit piece. You know, like, oh, Gina Carano's family is involved in the casinos. Like, okay, so is that news? What are you actually implying there? I mean, I don't even, what are you saying here? And so that was like the best they could find. Well, she must be a sleazy mobster, which is the implication because she's of Italian origin, right?
Yeah, so it's a smear campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was reacted very poorly. Again, none of this is, these are people that are so disconnected from the actual customer base in the marketplace that that they're not. I mean, if I had been there, I'd be like, guys, don't do this. This is going to be the reaction. They can't see the reaction because they're living in a bubble where everyone says back to them what they want to hear, so they don't understand why the customer base doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting, as you say, that the rumor is that it was generated internally, and then that's how the whole thing started. I mean, I know that Hollywood kind of has experience about creating these things. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it seems to me that this trend may have started with the Me Too movement, because. And from, I don't know what your experience of this was, but it seemed to me that the Me Too movement, whilst being, very relevant in what it was trying to expose, it kind of initially started as something to sort of hush up the
I'll tell you
the paedophilia thing that was rising up in Hollywood. And
unfortunately, tragically and evilly, this town has always abused children, going back to the silent film days, right? And it has always been covered up. This is something that the way that they cover up is they do not talk about it. People have talked about sexual harassment of actors. That also goes back to the silent film era. A silent film actress sued for sexual harassment back in the 1920s, right? Wow. This is nothing new, and she won the case, right? This is nothing new, right? However, they don't talk about the abuse of children because they just don't talk about it, because that'll bring the whole system down, right? And horrifically, there was a very respected documentary filmmaker who had made a lot of documentaries Hollywood supported, and then she made this documentary called Open Secret.
I've seen that,
which exposed it, and
it was buried.
It was buried. Literally, they didn't talk about it. They didn't protest it. They didn't do a review of it. The idea is ignore it, because we can't. As you saw, I mean, she names names. There's people. You can't bring any attention to this, right? Whereas Me Too is different, because that was. I mean, I can tell you, I had a little bit of insight as to what was happening. I was working on a TV show. I guess this started in 2016, I think it began, right? Right. About 2016. So it was fall 2016, and I was on a show that had been bought by Showtime that never got on the air because of these events. I was working with Oliver Stone, the great filmmaker, one of my iconic heroes. All my career I wanted to work with him, and I got
one of my heroes too.
Yeah, and he's an incredible guy, and I tried to get in front of him for 20 years, and suddenly I'm working with him. But it was a show that he sold to Showtime, set in Guantanamo Bay, the U.S. Army base there, which still has Gulag. It's been there for 20 years. Bush created it. Obama didn't shut it down. Trump didn't shut it down.
Nobody talks about it.
So he, so he wanted to do a TV drama about the fact that there's people that have been there for 20 years, people that were captured at the age of 18 or 17 or 16, right, by some neighbor who said, I think, I want to take my neighbor's land, so I'm going to accuse his kid of being involved in terrorism. And the soldiers just grabbed him, and he's been there. He's like now in his 40s, unable to leave. I mean, it's craziness. And so it's we were doing a show about that. We were dramatizing some of the actual events, right? And the thing that happened was the show was Showtime Networks, but it was under the aegis. The production company was Weinstein Company. So Harvey Weinstein's company, right? I never met the man. He wasn't involved in it in any way, but his name, the Weinstein Company was the company that was associated with putting it out. So when we started seeing on the trades, stuff coming out about Harvey Weinstein, sexual harassment, like we've all known that. I mean, this town has covered that up since I've been there, right?
Right.
Actors, huge famous actors have kissed his butt, have praised him in public, right? People that we all know, okay, well, she slept with him to get that role, or he's covering her. And he had madams, famous Hollywood older actresses that would send him young girls, right? People whose name, if I said, you'd be shocked, right? These are people all know. And they were all part of this club of people that were sexual libertines and viewed sex as an exchange thing, right? And power. And they were all part of it, right? And the industry has always had that. And so we're like, well, what's happening here? Why is this coming out? Because this town has always covered that up, right? No, the public was aware of him. Even the public was aware of him. But this town just covered it up. So what's that? Why are all these reports coming out that he did this and did that all of a sudden? So I called a friend who was working at Weinstein Company, because our show was a Weinstein Company show. So what's happening here? What's happening here? She said, oh. And again, I'm just rolling what she said. I can't confirm this personally. It's just what she said as somebody who works there. She said, oh, you don't understand what's happening. This is a political move that's getting out of control. What was happening, she claimed, was that, Harvey's brother, Bob, they didn't like each other. And Bob wanted to take control of the Weinstein Company from his brother. He was trying to find a way to PR him out, right? So they started leaking some specific information, got the trades intentionally to report it because it's power play. Bob is going to push Harvey out. He's lost a little bit of money. So when you lose money in this town, you're no longer at the top, right? So this is our moment. And then what happened that they couldn't control is then people started coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, he did this to me too. Yeah, he did this to me too. And this other person did this to me. And this other person. And they're like, oh, okay, we didn't want that. We were just trying to get this one dude out as a standard Hollywood power play. But it was that particular moment where Trump was rising. So everyone's like, Trump is grabbing them by the pee or whatever, right? So the industry fed on it. And suddenly it was literally a female producer said to me, the mob is coming out with the pitchforks. And we all got to hide. And when that came out, I called a friend of mine who was an assistant on the show that I got her the job. And I called her that night. I said, get your resume out. This show's never going to happen because it's associated with Weinstein, right? And then it spiraled and the industry tried to control the narrative because they'll all come down. They'll all come down, right? Because I said this is Weinstein was the public figure who was the jackass who proudly did it publicly. Everyone else is doing it privately, right? So this is going to bring the whole thing down. Bring people who have Oscars, who are famous, will be implicated as being his madams and his, this will destroy everything. And so the town tried to cover it up. And I said, this is what's going to happen. They're going to take control of the narrative. They're going to use people they're going to focus on people who are, let's just say the public is not going to see them as credible. People like Asia Argento, right? Who accused Harvey of all kinds of horrible things, but, her story doesn't really add up. And and so a lot of people said this person, what is this, right? Ms. Rose McGowan, who, became the face of it, but then she took a lot of money from him to be silent. So it's like, oh, so you would let yourself be paid off, but now you come out and speak, right? You could have spoken 10 years ago, but you took money to be quiet. So they focused on those stories that they knew the public would go, yeah, these women aren't credible, in order to make it go away. And then they sacrificed him. They sent him off to jail, blah, 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 whatever. Sure. But that made it go away. And so what I said back in 2016 when I saw this unraveling was, this is what's going to happen. 2016 is the year of Me Too. 2017 is going to be the year of the Me Too backlash, where they're like, oh my God, we got to control this, right? We can't let this person go down. We can't let my friend, And then 2018 will be the year of business back to usual, where people are casting, couching, and oppressing and abusing people. And it's exactly how that pattern played out. You don't hear about Me Too anymore. It's done.
That's true. Yeah,
absolutely done.
The narrative has definitely shifted.
And now with the governor of Cuomo is now accused. Talk about New York governor was today publicly accused by a former aide of essentially sexual assault. He grabbed her in a meeting, kissed her. Right? I mean, what the hell's wrong with you, man? I love women, but I mean, come on, man. What's wrong with you? Why would you think that's whatever? But and people do that in Hollywood, right? I've heard a lot of stories that are inappropriate for broadcast of stuff that happens in this town. But that's coming back again. But again, they're not using the hashtag Me Too. Notice that. They're not bringing that up. It's just one sleazy guy rather than a system of people that are still doing this.
Yeah. But like as you say, I think it feels like that was the trigger point for cancel culture, wasn't it? Almost that kind of started the trend.
That was the trigger thing because they started off because sexuality is, this is where, again, Hollywood, America is a repressed Puritan culture, and it comes back up again. So now the Puritans are the new woke people. Right. They're all about, sex agitates them more than anything else, and so that's what you feed.
So I mean, what's your feeling on the whole Genius Carano situation? I know we've touched on it. I mean, obviously, with cancel culture and the way things are working, is that people are judged on a not necessarily something they've written, but a retweet or a 2-second video. It's life in short clips and short sentences rather than the whole picture and the context.
And a lot of gaslighting.
Yeah, and gaslighting. So what was your feelings on the points A she was trying to make, B whether she should have? I mean, whether she shouldn't have said the things she said, whether she's within her rights to say that, but not necessarily keep a job. I mean, where did you stand on that?
Well, the overarching problem is that the current cancel culture is all about you don't get to interpret what you say. I get to interpret what you say, which leads it up to madness. Your intention doesn't matter. I tell you what your intention is as the listener, which is madness. I mean, that's utterly madness, right? Because then you can say whatever you want, whatever your intention is. I get to, the listener, the victim gets to define the intention. Like, no, this is what I'm trying to say. Why are you twisting my words? I'm not twisting words because under the system, I get to be the judge because I heard it, right? I get to be judge, jury, executioner, and everything. So that's the system, right? And so her words were taken and said, I'm going to interpret what she's saying. I have been following her for a long time. She's very smart about just putting out these nice little memes to get a political point across. And her political point has been primarily against cancel culture, against groupthink, in support of people's individuality. That's all this has been, right? This particular meme, I would have told her, don't post that because it'll be used against you. Because the town, I know, as some 20 years of this, Hollywood has a sacred cow, which is the events of World War II, right? That's a line that the industry you can't talk about, right? And so once you do that, the industry will jump on you and call you an anti-Semite, call you this and that.
Yeah, when it comes to the Holocaust,
Yeah, specifically. And so no matter what you say about it, you can't win. So I said, don't post that because that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for that because no one's going to come to your defense. I had a friend of mine call me the next day, a very powerful producer. He's Jewish. And he called and he said, I totally understand what she was saying. I 100% actually agree with what she's saying, but I'm not going to come defend her because it'll bring me down too, because it's the red line, right? And everyone is now terrified. Oh my God. And so that's there. What she was saying is correct and has been proven true. Number one, historically, it's correct. The historical thing she said was correct, that the Holocaust is the end result of many years of demonization of people such that their neighbors turned against them and started turning them in.
That's right.
That's the Anne Frank story. Anne Frank is dead because someone in her neighborhood told the Gestapo, this Jewish girl's hiding there. The Gestapo wasn't going door to door looking under people's room for secret rooms. They weren't doing that. Someone said, she's hiding in there. A neighbor did it, right? Yeah. And they had to get to this really pathological place where they felt that was the appropriate thing to do, right? So that is 100% correct. And her point, again, the interpreter heard it as, she's saying that conservative people are equal to 6 million Jews being killed. That's an extreme jump. And
that isn't, I agree.
It's a general comment about mass behavior, which is, like I said, the Salem witch trials. It wasn't the authorities going, the local sheriff didn't go house to house, say, are you a witch? It was the neighbors that point each other, she's a witch, he's a witch. And that's the Inquisition was the same. The Spanish Inquisition, the inquisitors weren't going house to house. It was neighbors that were turning in their neighbors and said, I think this person is secretly Jewish, or I think this person is still a Muslim, just pretending to be Catholic. And they would be turned in. It was all neighbors doing it. That's human nature.
Yeah. Because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition as well. So
the system doesn't have the ability.
I mean, when I saw that tweet, that meme, I understood exactly what she was saying personally.
Yes.
More sensitive types or people who, I don't know, have relatives who are in them situations might have taken it a bit differently and misconstrued what she was talking about.
Even then, you can call them sensitive types, but to me, that's just victimization.
Yeah.
Which is like, she's saying an objective truth. Do you not want to admit that neighbors turned in Jews? That's what happened.
That's what's happened. And she was warning against it. She wasn't trying to divide. I think
don't do this, saying our culture is getting to the place, and she proves it. It's her neighbors that turn her into the Hollywood police. Right?
She basically proved what she was talking about straight away.
And so it is. I don't believe anyone who criticizes the message is being honest. They're not intellectually honest. Anyone who says, and if you're saying that the Holocaust is a historical event that you can't make any comparisons to, well, I think, the killing fields, multiple millions of people were killed in Southeast Asia by Pol Pot, right? I think they would say, this was pretty bad. I mean, this was an organized extermination. This happened, 30 years ago and 30 years after the Holocaust, right? So once you do that, then that's just a political position. You're saying that you can't equate this historical event to part of the human condition. It is part of the human condition. It's the horrible part of the human condition, and it keeps repeating.
And it keeps repeating. It's happening now in, you got
it's happening in China.
Muslims in China. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's happening by Muslims in China. So whatever.
I mean, I suppose she was, she was doubly doomed, I guess, because
it was coming. They were waiting for the moment. I knew that they were just waiting for. They knew one day she was going to make a World War II comparison, and that would be the line.
Yeah,
they knew that.
Also, of course, she got the trans movement sort of came on board with the whole thing with her.
Yeah, and again, she's not anti-trans.
No, she said that.
I've had some interaction with her. At least, we've had a few very nice, email DM exchanges. She's a very gracious person, and she's very kind, exudes very loving energy. She doesn't want anyone to be oppressed. She doesn't want anyone discriminated against. She doesn't want anyone to suffer. She also doesn't want someone saying, put a pronoun in your bio.
Exactly.
That's all.
She strikes me the sort of person who will defend anybody who's being bullied.
That's exactly who she is, and she's
stands up to the bullies. She held this whole movement. You want to put, look, I make fun of them on Twitter all the time. The people who feel their identity is put a pronoun on their bow, I will continue to make fun of them because I think it's silly, right? The only pronoun I ever identify anybody, I'm like, I say you to you. If I'm talking to you, I never say he, him, she, her, they, them. I say, hey, Matt, how are you, right? Yeah. That's what I'm gonna do, right? And if I'm not talking to you, why am I talking about you to somebody else, right? And how does that, whatever? So, but the agenda of people that push that onto others is about mind control. It's about a cult. Do whatever whatever you want in your bio. I don't care. I'm going to make fun of you. But this is what this is. And she's fighting a cult. Yeah.
Comment there. I think there's a wish that you can use Junior in one of your future projects there.
I will say, because I would say, inshallah, if God wills. Right now she's got a whole journey ahead of her. I'll be interested to see what happens with Mr. Shapiro.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm saying. I'm a very conservative guy. Anybody who follows me on Twitter knows that. But I also don't agree with Ben Shapiro on a lot of things, particularly his policies in the Middle East. Not surprising. Mr. Shapiro has very little sympathy for Muslims and Palestinians, whatever. That's his agenda, right? So I just hope to God he doesn't try to present her, these kind of Chuck Norris movies from the 80s where he's just, here's some people in turbans, go shoot them, Gina, right? And I don't I think he might want to present those kinds of movies, but I don't know if her getting involved with Shapiro.
Hopefully we'll get something better. And
but she's not that kind of person, and she's a smart.
Yeah,
definitely.
So, I guess we should talk a little bit about Star Wars. This has been brilliant, but so. Coming back to Star Wars, then obviously you were involved in Disney, so you worked on the Tron Uprising. Now, in terms of The Last Jedi, I understand that you actually use this in your teachings as an example of bad screenwriting. So, could you expand on? We all know what our problems are personally with The Last Jedi. We have, we know people who think it's the greatest Star Wars movie ever. That's entirely their. That's entirely their. Their opinion.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, I think it's one of the worst movies ever made, and it broke my heart. Right. That's just my opinion. And I have been asked. For the last 10 years, I do a lot of talks at universities. I actually came to the UK and I spoke at Cambridge. To publicize. And so I've done these all over the place. I've talked at Harvard. I've talked at Stanford. I've talked at little community colleges. Right. And so as a Muslim guy in Hollywood, people would like to hear what I have to say about my experiences. And so I've done those. And as a result of that, people have asked me at times, can you teach a seminar on screenwriting? And so I've done that at places like Columbia University. I've done that at University of Chicago. I've done that at DePaul University, other places, right? And so I will teach basic storytelling and in those seminars, and I will use the original Star Wars, A New Hope, as an archetypal story in those seminars, how story structure and character development works. And then after The Last Jedi came out, I still was invited to these places, and I started talking about how it doesn't work, right? The very first place that I did an analysis of The Last Jedi was I was invited back to my old business school, Dartmouth, which is where I wrote my first screenplay. I was invited as an alumnus to speak there about a month after The Last Jedi came out. So about, it was mid-January of the next year, right? And that was the first time I had spoken publicly about it. And at the time, the official narrative was still, this is the best thing since sliced bread, right? And I talked to the business school students, and I said, this is, in a few years, you will be reading business school cases about the downfall of Lucasfilm, and that this project started that, right?
Yeah.
Once they went from political storytelling, to political storytelling, it would be the end of the company. And I gave that talk right after The Last Jedi. Then I was invited, because the reason I'm giving these lists is that people, my adversaries on Twitter, have said, I looked it up. You've never been a professor of screenwriting anywhere. I'm like, no, I've never been a professor of screenwriting. I just get invited to these schools and I teach. And so I will list where these things happen, because people have denied that these things have happened because they can't find it on the internet, right? So afterwards,
it's on the internet. It doesn't exist, Cameron. You should know that.
If I can't find the schedule of your teaching, it never happened.
There you go.
It's new. It's Orwell, right? And so I said, okay. So at the University of Oregon, because people ask me, at the University of Oregon, about a year after that, I was invited to speak and to teach about screenwriting as well. And I did. And I talked to the University of Oregon about how The Last Jedi doesn't work, and why it doesn't work from storytelling points of view, why it doesn't work internally as a movie, and why it doesn't work as part of a larger narrative, and why the intentions behind it to subvert the narrative are not good storytelling, right? During the last few years, I had heard this phrase again and again, subvert expectations, and I found it very offensive. I heard it in India, I heard it on writers' rooms that I worked in. We got to subvert our expectations. I'm like, no. Subverting expectations is basically giving people what they don't want and leaving them disappointed and feeling morally superior to them because you taught them a lesson, right?
Where do you think this came from?
This is coming out of the same sort of cultural Marxism that has been spreading, right? It's all because cultural Marxism is all about subverting reality. It's all about
that's right.
Right? Sure. And so, I mean, you read these things, that's what it's all about. It's about breaking down narrative so that you can't even talk. Right. Yeah. And so there's no good or bad. There's no heroes or villains. Right. And then as a result, you have no way to communicate with other human beings because you don't even know what male or female is anymore. There's no way to communicate. There's just no words anymore. Right.
Postmodern filmmaking.
Exactly. And that's not what the audience wants. The audience has always wanted good storytelling. Storytelling was laid out by Aristotle in On Poetics, right? Which you can get today at Barnes and Nobles. It's still a good book. So 2,300 years later, Aristotle's analysis of the 3-act structure is the basis of modern storytelling because he understood how the human mind works and how we interpret stories and how they reflect our lives. And so I use The Last Jedi as an example of this destructive subversion that would destroy a story and ultimately not be able to build anything on top of it, right? And so, I mean, even if you like The Last Jedi, the problem is the way that movie ends is there's nowhere to go.
No, it felt like an ending.
It was at the end of a story.
Like an ending. Yeah.
And so, that's a tragedy that was set up then for the filmmakers that would try to fix it afterwards. But so I would teach that, and it would open up people's minds. And privately, people always tell me that they despise The Last Jedi. They tell me that in Hollywood. I've only met one person in Hollywood who said he was fine with The Last Jedi, and he's by nature and let's just say he's a proud contrarian as part of his persona. And he's all, well, I hated the prequels, and The Last Jedi is at the same level, so it's all Star Wars to me. I said, okay. I mean, that's not really a very, you're a pretty successful screenwriter. That's not really deep analysis there, but all right, whatever. That's one person. Everyone I've ever met has said, yeah, I don't really like this movie, man. I don't want to say that publicly like you because I'm not a moron. I want to have a career, and maybe Kathleen Kennedy will hire me, but you say that publicly. I'm not going to do it. I don't think Miss Kennedy's going to be hiring me, but I also think Miss Kennedy's not going to be around much longer. So,
yeah, I mean,
do you really think that? I really think that her contract comes to an end this year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that'll be it?
I mean, I don't know that she's going to make it to the end of the contract. I think this event is going to get worse and worse. I think it's spiraling into something that Lucasfilm and Disney cannot control. And as the economics hit, people were buying Gina Carano toys. I think she was almost as popular, or even she was certainly more popular than the other action figures. Probably the only thing more popular than her was Baby Yoda, right? And so now they're not producing those toys, and the few that are out there are becoming, they're selling for $2,000 a piece, right? And the collector's pieces. And the shareholders are burned out of this garbage. Disney shareholders have lost a lot of money. They know Disney is in trouble. Disney, more than the other studios, was hurt by the last year's lockdowns because it didn't just lose theatrical revenue. Yeah, it lost the parks, it lost the cruise ships, everything. Right? Disney went from being the most powerful force in the industry to something that the Chapter 11 bankruptcy is not impossible as an outcome for it, right? And The Mandalorian had started turning things around. People were buying Baby Yoda toys, and that was bringing money back in. People were to the places that are open, Disney World. People were going and wanted to see Star Wars related stuff, and they were beginning to shuffle out those old sequel characters, even as costumed characters in Disney World, whatever, because they wanted people. People were watching The Mandalorian, so they had people coming in dressed like that, right? Yeah. And now, I mean, I canceled Disney Plus the moment I canceled that day when I heard Gina was let go, right? And I'm not going to return. No, I'm not going to return.
No, I'm not either. So what's the next move within the walls of Lucasfilm? Is there anybody in there who can, I don't know, what's the word, launch a coup, a takeover? I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, Jon Favreau didn't try to launch a coup. He just wanted to set it straight and do it in an honorable way. And he's politically savvy, unlike me. There was a reason I was fired from Disney, is because I'm not politically savvy. I'm a straightforward guy, right? I said, this isn't working, and this is where the problem is. You need to talk to that person. Not gonna talk to that person. You're done, right? And so he's smart.
That happened.
Yep. I mean, literally, that's exactly what happened. I said, these people are causing roadblocks. We're losing a lot of money on the production of this show, Tron, that doesn't need to be lost because these people are screwing up this process. Oh, those people are very politically powerful. And yes, they are incompetent. And I'm not going to talk to them because then I'm going to get a call from somebody who's going to try to get my job out. And so they're going to let you out. And the day that I was fired, I said to the executive that fired me, I said, fine, I'll go. But the problem is going to remain. And what's going to happen is you've doomed this series because number one, the storytelling quality is going to go down because I'm not writing it anymore. But okay, you'll find somebody. Sure. You'll find somebody. And people have said, like, hey, the first half of that show was great. As you probably, as a fan, the second half is more of a kid's show. The first half is very adult, right? Yeah. And it becomes more of a kid's show. And they brought in somebody who made it more of a kid's show. Fine. But the bigger problem is that because of the problems in the production process and the people that were, in my view, causing those problems, I said, this is going to become financially untenable for you to continue the show, and you will cancel it at the end of first season, which will ruin your efforts to create this franchise that you're trying to do. You're going to lose this potential tens of millions of dollars of profit that the show would have brought you if the show could continue. But instead, you don't want to confront this person. Right. And I left. Crazy. And exactly what happened. So Tron's been dead for a decade because of that. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And
that's a decade of lost money.
Yeah, I know it's crazy because personally, I thought Legacy was tremendous. It
was a good film. And Uprising, I'm very proud of it. And and we'll see. There's talk with Jared Leto, trying to bring it back. Who knows? But to answer your earlier question, which is, there's no one to set a coup at this point because Jon Favreau is not a coup kind of person. He's too politically savvy. He wasn't trying to push out Kathleen Kennedy, at least in a coup. He was just trying to get more and more authority so that she would become irrelevant. Yeah, and he's doing that by making the money. And that's the smart, politically savvy way to do it. I'm just going to keep making you money by doing things my way, and eventually you're just going to ignore this person and their high republic nonsense that nobody wants.
Yeah. Right? And he was doing that, but roadblocks keep being put in his way. You know what I mean?
And then this was, and Doomcock and others have said that this effort, the Gina was actually collateral damage from their sources. That Gina was collateral damage. That this is all an effort to get to Favreau, which I believe. Right?
Yeah.
They don't really care what Gina says. They know what she meant, and they know what she's about, and they know she's a nice person. They just don't like her, but that's not the problem. The problem is Favreau has embarrassed Ms. Kennedy, right? He's embarrassed her inside. We all in Hollywood know what happened here. He's embarrassed her, made her look weak, has proven her wrong, and has proven her wrong with the only thing that Hollywood cares about, money. right?
Yeah.
And then this whole thing with Luke Skywalker returning and the global reaction to that is humiliating for someone who went out of their way to eliminate this character and humiliate it, right? And so it's all about getting rid of Jon Favreau, but I don't think it's going to work.
And it's crazy when you've got people, we had such a huge positive fan reaction, and God knows that the Star Wars community needed a huge positive situation to focus on. The Luke Skywalker thing coming back was great for the community, and then all of a sudden you've got people from within Lucasfilm kind of slating it and slagging it off. Pablo and people like that. It's like, why would you do that?
For the people at the top, like Ms. Kennedy, it's about ego. I don't think she cares about any of this woke agenda. She'll say all the right words to fit into the official narrative today, but I don't think she cares, right? It's about her ego and like, I'm supposed to have been this great, powerful woman that created this even better legacy than and a white male, Jon Favreau, a white male comes in and takes this away, right? And then those what I call the flying monkeys, the moron executives, the people behind the high Republic crap and these dumb comics or whatever that nobody's reading. The flying monkeys, they're just morons. They're just morons and ideologues, right? And they're never going to be Kathleen Kennedy. They are cannon fodder, right? Yeah. And, like Pablo Hidalgo, and they're just cannon fodder for the politics of Hollywood, right? But they're too stupid to see that. So they just want to be, victorious in a cultural war in their mind, and they're just going to be swept away. So
closely related to this. Sorry, we've got a comment coming in.
Please.
The public is waiting for Kathleen Kennedy's response about Gina. Will she respond? Bob Iger is her boss. She must respond. What do you say to that?
No, she doesn't have to respond because they're trying to balance the politics of the actual situation with the official Hollywood narrative. They have to keep thing. And you have to understand, because it's presented because Gina has been falsely labeled as anti-trans and now anti-Semitic, those are two red buttons in the industry. So she's not going to come out in any way saying, even Jon Favreau, who I'm sure didn't support her firing but couldn't stop it, has not put out a statement in her defense, right? Because that's just going to get you wiped out by the mob, right? Because you're talking to the two red lines that this industry has set up right now. So, what I think will happen is that privately, I'm sure there's a lot of rage and a lot of screaming on phones and Zoom meetings, right? And privately, whatever political leverage Ms. Kennedy has over the people like Iger, because that's what it comes down to, because it's not even rational that she has retained any involvement after all the disasters of The Last Jedi, Solo, and all this other stuff, the loss of money, the loss of the parks, all of that stuff. There's political leverage she has because all these people know each other in their private lives. Like I said, all that Weinstein stuff. There's stuff in people have in safes that they use against each other, right? And that's actually reality. It's not hyperbole, right?
Just like politics.
Yeah, just political leverage. I mean, there's opposition research, if we could call it that, right? So there's political leverage that you don't want leaked to the trades, and so that's been keeping her there in power. And so I think at this point, the shareholder, and we're talking about not shareholders like Kamran Pasha owns 15 shares of Disney. We're talking about hedge funds that own, half $500 million worth of Disney, right? Who are calling and saying, man, why am I making a loss when I should be? You started giving me money and you're doing this crap now, making a loss again, right?
Yeah.
So those are the people they're afraid of, the hedge fund guys, right, who own large shares of Disney. And so those are because I can't have any effect, but Iger's afraid. Iger has political ambitions. He keeps pissing those guys off. Those guys aren't going to bankroll his political ambitions. They're going to fund his opposition. That's where the game is played, right? The rich people are fighting among. Now rich people are losing money. Now they're pissed off. So it's going to be, it's not a coup. It's going to just be, she's going to be asked to retire with much honor, and they'll throw her parties and give her some extra awards. I believe that's coming because I think those hedge fund guys are really angry right now.
Yeah.
Just to kind of finish up on Star Wars and the sequel trilogy, because something else has just occurred to me that I want to ask you about as well, in terms of Lucasfilm. But when the sequel trilogy started, I mean, like let's take The Force Awakens to start with. Like, what were your thoughts on that? Did you think it had potential to go somewhere interesting, and then obviously The Last Jedi ruined it, or do you think they just didn't use enough imagination? They just tried to run off nostalgia.
I mean, I was excited. I was incredibly excited to see The Force Awakens, and I watched it, and it was the first Star Wars movie that I only watched once. I've never seen it again. I've never seen it again. I watched it. I enjoyed parts of it. I laughed at some moments, right? And I even as I was watching, I was like, "Oh, they're messing with the light speed rules. Han can just fly across the light speed. How do you enter an atmosphere? Because you enter a planet, the planet's the gravity well will destroy the. That's why in the Return of the Jedi, that's if you remember the rules of Return of the Jedi, when they all jumped to Endor. They jumped way far from Endor and came in, right? Because they jumped in too close to Endor, the gravity would have destroyed their ships. So they fly to Endor, and then the Emperor surrounds their escape route. So they can't leave Endor orbit. Because when the star is activated, because that's remember the whole thing that the Emperor has a surprise, and so the ships are blocking their way. Because when they realize the Death Star is active, they've got to go. We got to get out of here, but they don't just jump out, which is what you do in these new sequels, right? Get away from the planet, so they're far enough away that it doesn't rip them apart, but they're being blocked. That's the story logic, right? Whatever. So I even watched it, and I was like, what's happening? And at the end of the movie, I was like, okay, this is sort of a rehash of New Hope, and it wasn't something. There were some fun moments in it. I like Daisy Ridley, and I like the actors. And I was like, I don't know, and I never bothered to see it again. It didn't give me nightmares as The Last Jedi did. I couldn't sleep after The Last Jedi. I was
really,
but I literally couldn't sleep that night. I felt that my childhood had been attacked, right, by these cultural Marxist scumbags that I've been dealing with in writers' rooms. Seeing crazy things, right? I mean, and now I felt like this had been the takeover of Star Wars by these pathologically dangerous people. And so from The Force Awakens, I said, there's not much to go from here, but they had enough goodwill that they could have built something out of it if Last Jedi hadn't been garbage. Their plan was Force Awakens makes $2 billion. Episode 8 makes $2.2 billion. Episode 9 makes $2.5 billion. That was the actual plan. And I discussed this in my business school class. I was like, that was the plan. The plan wasn't 2.3 billion to 1.3. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't the plan.
No.
So, I mean, this just occurred to me. Like, do you think this whole issue is any way related to Indiana Jones 5? Has that been delayed because they literally? I mean, it's one thing that really annoys me anyway. Is like we know that there's good screenwriters out there like yourself who can write a cohesive story and it can be created. Now, I don't know what it is with Indiana Jones, but it seems that they can't get somebody to write a script that everyone could agree on in a 10-year period, and then it never happens. But it's not just that. It's like, it's even Spielberg has jumped ship. Is this in any way related to Kathleen Kennedy? Are they waiting for all this to die down before they try and do it? I don't know.
I'm sure it is because, Spielberg probably sensed that the same agenda. I mean, they all look. We're talking about it. Lucas knows about it. I know for a fact Lucas is talking about it because I have friends who know Lucas who've told me his opinions on all this stuff, right? And so Lucas and Spielberg and all these people they know what's happening with the storytelling. At the end of the day, they are storytellers. Probably Spielberg is more of a political storyteller than Lucas is, but he knows how to tell a story with a political message without it being, ham-fisted, right?
Yeah.
And he knows bad storytelling, and he objectively knows bad storytelling, and he could tell that where Lucasfilm is going is towards bad storytelling. So I'm sure that he has no enthusiasm with taking something that he loves very deeply, especially after the criticism that the last one got, right? Which I think is fair criticism. The last one was a disappointment of a wonderful franchise that didn't have to be what it was, and yet it was that. So I think
was that down to Cope, or is that down to the sort of nature of screenwriting now, where it's all the executives getting involved and pulling bits out and saying, I want this in there, and then you end up a shadow of its fall itself.
I mean, that's why Lucas wanted to take Star Wars independent, right? That's why he had the money to finance the second and third movies on his own, right? Because the executives always have been involved, and filmmakers like Lucas don't like being told what to do, right? By people who are not thinking in terms of story, but thinking in terms of political power or just their own power, not even a messaging, right? They're thinking in terms of impressing the boss in the meeting, right? And so that's always been there. I think part of it, the problem is not, there are great screenwriters, out there besides myself. There's great screenwriters out there who could do a wonderful Indiana Jones movie, who could have done a wonderful Star Wars movie, but they're not being hired, right? I read because politically they're not serving the agendas of the people making the
they don't have the same political mindset or can be controlled.
It's like Darabont wrote an incredible script for Indy 4, never got made.
Because it's the decisions are coming from people that are not thinking in those terms. I read the never filmed episode 9 script, Duel of Fates, by Colin Trevorrow, and he had a fellow writer write it. And I read it, and in my opinion, it's an incredible script. It did the amazing thing that I think was possible. It actually fixed The Last Jedi. It starts off where The Last Jedi ended, does not undo it, which the third movie in episode 9 tried to do, right? It simply accepts the premises established by The Last Jedi and then makes it work. And then makes the characters really interesting and compelling. And, and the most amazing thing is that the most interesting character in that script is Rose Tico.
Wow,
Rose Tico, she becomes this incredibly compelling character written by a good screenwriter who cares, right? She becomes this incredibly compelling character that you're constantly like, okay, can we get back? You're reading it. Like, can we get back to Rose? What happened to Rose? Because every time you see her, she ends at a cliffhanger. You're like, I want to go back to Rose. And then and Rey was not a Mary Sue. She gets her ass kicked by Kylo multiple times, who's finally learned how to kick her ass after 2 movies of getting his ass, right? And he kicks her ass pretty badly in the movie. And I mean, since the movie's never been made, I mean, the ending is quite a shock. The ending is Kylo actually blinds her. He takes out her eyes with his lightsaber. He cuts her eyes, and she still fights on. That's how much he's kicking her ass. She's left blinded permanently, and that's she's the tragic heroine, right? And so that story was, and Luke, even as a Force ghost, is incredibly compelling. And you see Finn leads a stormtrooper rebellion in a real way, unlike the sort of whatever they tried to do in the J.J. Abrams version. And you're like, this is a screenplay. The page 1, as I read it, my heart was racing because I felt like I was watching Star Wars in my mind as I read it. And this was written by people like Trevorrow who love Star Wars. And guess what? We're never going to see that movie.
No, they got rid of him. Why did they get rid of him?
He would have fixed, he would have brought back people like me to watch that film, and all these morons who claim to like The Last Jedi would have still seen that too. They would have gotten up. They would have paid the $2 billion that they wanted to make the first time.
Yeah. So why did he go then? Because he's not serving the political agenda.
I mean, creative differences was the reason they gave us, but something more to it.
There's 2 reasons. Again, I got that script from people who are working with Colin, right? Friends of mine who are screenwriters. They gave me that script. So this is all what they're conveying to me, right? So there were 2 reasons he was let go. One was that, Kathleen Kennedy's entire way of doing, she's all about, again, it's all about being the mean girl, the popular girl in high school. So she always was bringing in filmmakers that had something exciting. Like, Rian Johnson was the up and exciting filmmaker you wanted to bring in, right? So all of the filmmakers she was hiring were people that were getting a lot of praise for something. And then Trevorrow was getting a lot of praise from Jurassic World. And so she's the shiny toy she can hold up at the high school party and say, look.
Yeah.
But
then the Book of Henry happened.
Yeah, the Book of Henry, which was poorly received, got bad reviews. So that tarnished his glitter. And she couldn't objectively tell whether he was a good storyteller or not. He was just getting fame that day. Now he's not. Now he's getting criticism. Can't be associated with him. That's number 1. That was already a problem. Number 2 is he had the audacity to question Rian Johnson and say, "Yeah, I need Luke alive." The draft I read was the rewritten draft with Luke dead. In his original draft, he had Luke alive. He had a plan where Luke is this huge part of Rey's journey. And the thing is, look, he's a professional. When he was told, "No, Luke is dead," he's like, "All right." He rewrote that script with Luke as a Force ghost and still makes him compelling, right? It still makes him a really interesting part. He's a part of the movie. He doesn't show up for a scene. He's there. One of the funniest things is he is haunting Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren can't get rid of him. He keeps appearing to and driving Kylo crazy. It's like Kylo is literally losing his mind because he can't get he's pushing to madness because he keeps appearing. That's a fun thing, right?
That would have been better. Yeah, that would have been good.
So whatever. So he had the audacity, and the way, unfortunately, Miss Kennedy runs Lucasfilm, as we all know, it's just, you don't question her. She's, you can't, the moment you show any kind of resistance, you are out. And he had the audacity to question her and her protege, her little mini-me, Rian Johnson, whose only purpose is to do whatever she says, right? I don't even fault Rian Johnson for that bad storytelling. I'm sure he had his own sort of like weirdo political agendas in writing the bad Last Jedi script, but he's essentially giving her what she wanted, right? He can be a good storyteller. The Looper is a good movie. Knives Out is a good movie. He can be a good storyteller, right? He just gave the boss what she wanted.
Do you think that? Do you feel like there's an, because it felt to me all the way through, and obviously that played out. Yeah. Do you think the agenda was like, just make legacy characters failures. I mean, Hollywood are doing that.
That was the agenda, because it's part of the
Hollywood
agenda.
They've done it with Bill and Ted. It's the same thing.
Well, the old white male era must come to an end. And again, that was linked to Trump. It was, if we support Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, then we are supporting Donald Trump. It was this pathological connection that was in their own imagination, right? It was all about subverting the evil white culture that led to Donald Trump. That's what it was. It wasn't more complex than that.
And it is very cult-like, as you said previously. It seems to be a weird sort of mind frame everybody behind those Hollywood walls are in. And it's not just Hollywood. We're seeing it in other institutions, in the universities, and
again, that was the official. Look, the idea that, as someone said, if you think that, as you're agreeing with Hollywood, you're agreeing with the mobs on Twitter, you're agreeing with the academics, you're agreeing with the government, you're agreeing with the bureaucrats, and you think you're the rebel, you think you're the who are you resisting? You're part of the narrative. Who are you resisting?
Exactly.
So, what do you think this all means for Mangold then? Who's on Indiana Jones 5?
I don't know that
he's going to be out.
I don't know that it's ever going to get made.
You don't think it's ever going to happen?
I don't know that it's ever going to get made. Yeah. I mean, it's because the internal politics of Lucasfilm is a destroyed company. It's a destroyed company, right? Jon Favreau's efforts have failed because of this last effort. Gina, what happened with Gina Carano was a black swan that unraveled everything that he tried to do. And I don't know that it can be fixed now, because they can't politically fire her. They can't come out and say she was wrong. They can't do it. And so as a result of that, they will just, I've said this for you. I said this back, remember that business school talk I gave right after The Last Jedi? I said this then. I said, I envision a future where George Lucas will buy back Lucasfilms for pennies on the dollar. He sold it for $400. I can imagine a world where he'll give them $400 million, which is nothing out of his pocket, and just say, here, let me just get this back. Because that's what happened with Power Rangers, right? Power Rangers was sold to Disney and was bought back at literally like 10% of the sale price by the same guy.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what happened to Gina Carano isn't the end of it, is it? Because it's already heating up on Twitter.
It's we're looking at the downfall of Lucasfilm. I just think Lucasfilm as a company is going to cease to exist in its current form, possibly this year, possibly next year. It's just gonna wither away. And George Lucas or George Lucas's heirs, I hope Mr. Lucas stays with us many more years. George Lucas or whoever he sets up to as his heirs will take it back control of it and try to fix his legacy.
Yeah,
let's do it, guys.
and on that note, gentlemen, I apologize. I do actually have to head out, so I hope I was helpful to you in this conversation.
It's been a fascinating conversation. Absolutely fantastic.
Really good.
Bring back on again. I think one of your colleagues, the normal host of the show, wasn't on. I'd love to come back next time when he's on as well.
Absolutely.
Sure. And you got to have welcome British ladies. What's all these dudes here? As I always say, this high testosterone stuff bores me. There's a lot of lovely British fans. Please bring them on.
Absolutely.
We'll put a female host in next time as well.
I will take it. All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time, and I hope your audience enjoyed it, and hopefully I can come back.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
Anytime. Thanks,
thank you very much, Cameron.
All right, guys. God bless. Take care.
Appreciate it.
All the best. Thank you. Super duper.
Wow. Well, what a bombshell note to end on. Lucasfilm is finished in the next couple of years.
Certainly was. I think we just need to play this for Cameron because that was a great game. Well, yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, that was like unlike any guest we've ever had. So,
no.
Got some applause there.
A little peek behind the curtain of Hollywood there. Great stuff from Cameron. Fire on the Barrel Club.
Absolutely.
Good one, Brian.
We're not going to do that. We'd have no music.
We'd have no music. We'd have
no intelligent opinions.
All our special effects in the background. All the little.
We'd have no intelligent opinions either if we got rid of Andy Berkel.
Exactly.
No, but thanks, Kevin, for that. I mean, incredible that. It's amazing that when we went back to the beginning and talking about his early career, that journalism was in there, and I just had to pick up on that. And I just thought it was amazing that it made so much sense that now he's kind of he's making comment on the way journalism is and how social media and Twitter storms and all that kind of stuff. Is that the guy was effectively a investigative journalist at one point? So yeah, amazing stuff.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah. He's right though. Journalism is in not in a good state. Not like
it's finished. It's finished. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's as he said. It's very much. You get the stuff. They're getting stuff handed to them off the wire and reading out what's given to them. All the agencies, like you can put BBC, ITV, Channel 4 together, line them up and get the same story almost told the same way over a 15-20 minute period between all the channels. There isn't the investigative journalism. All the investigative journalism, as Cameron was referring to, is in the independent media. It's not there anymore. What we have in the mainstream media is the pressing of these narratives.
Exactly right. And it's damaging society in the long run as well. It's one of these things are quite divisive. But anyway,
so one more comment from your Muslim uncle Paddy CSW Matt. Thank you, great guest and great show. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in and giving us a watch.
Hope you'll join us again.
Yeah,
access journalism. Yeah, I mean, got to be honest. I mean,
shills.
To a certain extent, we don't really do journalism on this show. We've stepped outside of
talking heads, aren't we?
We just like to talk about. Generally, we like to talk about Star Wars, and we have fallen into a trap previously about just discussing Star Wars news and what that means in terms of just the way we're feeling about things. And yes, we have had we've fallen into a trap of being negative about things because we've found it very difficult to
be positive
about it. Apart from the original trilogy or the prequels and the stuff we actually love, The Mandalorian.
Pre-Disney, we're good.
Pre-Disney, we're good, but I mean, still, The Mandalorian, we've been very positive about that.
Yeah.
But I think Cameron nailed a lot of the reasons why we have been negative, and I just find that incredible about about the 9 script. But that was a point you didn't make. Like it was just on a whim that they were going to kill Luke, isn't that right? That wasn't going to happen at first.
No, you're right there. Yeah, I think it came late in the movie making.
Yeah, Terrio was like, "I need Luke alive," and then he was like, "No, we're going to kill him," and it was just like on a whim.
It was on a whim, last minute thing.
Why wouldn't you set the next guy up to tell the story that he wants to tell?
Well, he's the biggest one of the biggest characters, if not the biggest, of Star Wars. You'd keep him in the movie, so we had a decent storyline to follow on. I mean,
it's the fucking Skywalker saga.
It's weird. It's like, I mean, yeah, it is. It's a Skywalker saga. I don't like The Last Jedi. I thought The Force Awakens was okay. The Last Jedi, very disappointed. And therefore, following on to the next movie after that, the Rise of Skywalker.
It was terrible.
Yeah, I've seen it once. That's it. Were people who like The Last Jedi, which that's fine, whatever.
I've seen it two and a half times. Anyway,
people who like The Last Jedi don't like The Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're getting sucked into it. Anyway, let's go back. Let's go back to Cameron because I know she pulled a page up there.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Let's just do a little plug of some of his work. Okay, this is something we didn't get into. I did actually want to get into it on the program, and obviously, we got a good picture of what a scholar he is in terms of history and stuff like that, and his interest in history, because he's drawing parallels between
and religion,
different points of history and religion, which makes sense. When you look at get yourselves onto Amazon, you can pick up Cameron's 2 books there. One of them is called Mother of Believers, a novel of the birth of Islam. And that's only $6.99 for the Kindle edition. And you can get Shadows of the Swords, an epic novel of the Crusades, an epic saga of love war. Shadow of the Swords tells the story of the Crusades from the Muslim perspective. It sounds really interesting.
So that would be from Saladin's perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Good stuff.
Excellent. So get on and support Kamran in that way, if you enjoyed the interview, maybe go on and grab one of his books. You can also follow him on Twitter at Kamran Pasha. And yeah, let's hope he comes back again. Was there any other news we wanted to cover quickly? Oh, hang on 1 second. Brian Winter, it's been its community. He said, I left The Farce Awakens gutted. The Farce Awakens. I've made no secret of the fact it wasn't perfect, but I did like The Force Awakens, but that's mainly because I'm the hugest Harrison Ford fan in the world.
Yes,
so I am biased. Yeah, so were we going to cover a little bit more news before we got out of here?
I didn't actually do any digging around for news. I think the main Star Wars news now is dominated by
Gina
Carano.
Okay, well, quickly before we get out of there, I know we've touched on it. We did touch on it with Cameron, and he gave his opinion, and he's actually had some discourse with Gina. Do you want to sort of break down the interview clips that we prepared?
Sure.
Just before we get out of here. We're not going to go too deeply into this, but I think it certainly is something that bears.
Well, I think a lot of these clips
discussion.
Show basically how the media is twisting her words, and
Yes.
a lot of people are believing what they're being told off the bat. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll jump into it. This way. So coming back around to the Gina Carano story, as we've discussed with Cameron earlier in the show. This is something we didn't really discuss last week. I mean, hey, everyone's discussed why it's a problem. Almost, it's a problem for anyone to discuss these things. As Cameron said, everyone's scared of talking about things. For the reason why,
Cancel culture.
I can't speak tonight. I don't know what's going on.
Cancel culture, mate.
It usually flows so well. You spoke so much better than me tonight, Matt. But yeah, the cancel culture, people are going to end up in the same boat. They're going to be removed from their platforms and not able to say what they want to say. But coming back around to that, which clip did you want to look at first? The 3 words, or the bullying, or the other one? Oh, have we lost Matt? Matt's frozen. He has frozen. Right. Oh no, he's back. You're back.
Sorry,
back.
I think a bit of an internet droppage there.
Yeah, they're on to us.
Well, shall we have a look at? I think this is they're on to us. Yeah. The 3 words.
Okay, we'll look at the 3 words. So we'll just set this up a little bit.
This is basically what started it.
This is what started the whole Gina Carano row. This is Gina talking about it on the Ben Shapiro show. When was it? It was this week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tail end of last week.
Tail end of last week. Was it the weekend? Sunday, wasn't it? Sunday,
yeah. Okay. So here's Gina Carano.
I ended up putting beep bop boop in my Twitter bio, and 100%. It was 100% to go to the Twitter mob that was telling you what to do, and it had zero to do with trying to go after the transgendered community, because I would never do that. I'm just me personally. I'm not trying to target anybody or go out after anybody. And so as soon as I saw people started taking that wrong, I put right after that. I was like, no, beep bop boop was like me just saying. I literally said to my friend, I was like, let's put something in my bio just to show like I can put whatever I want in my bio, just like they put like whatever they want in their bio, like Trash Panda and all this stuff. And like, so I just put these noises in my bio, and then there was this crazy meltdown. It was just a big, massive meltdown, and all the fear and all of the stuff goes straight through your skin, and you start like, whoa, what is happening? Like, I told you I didn't mean this towards this community, and like, you're misunderstanding it. And it was just a shock wave went through my body, because I was like, oh, this is what this feels like. This is uncomfortable.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, she seems completely sincere to me.
Absolutely, I believe every word she's saying there. She was not having a go at anybody individually. She was having a go at the bullies who were trying to make her do something that she didn't want to do. You know, and
well, yeah, I mean, look, even if let's say, even if I didn't think she was on the money, if she was sincere when she was saying that, even if she did decide to say something like that, or write something like that on Twitter, and had preceded it by saying, I'm not transist, but I'm saying this because for that reason.
Yeah,
I think she still would have been accused of it.
Oh, of course,
because that's where we are,
Mm.
And of course, she did cover the issue of bullying as well, because I mean, well, I know that she can certainly handle herself in a physical situation. But she did come onto the topic of bullying, didn't she, on the bench show as well?
And I think it did get to her mentally. She said there, she felt it in her skin. The shockwave of it. It's terrible the way people are on Twitter. They want blood, don't they?
Yeah,
and they got it in the end. They got it in the end, which is and they won't stop there. They won't stop there.
No, they won't.
And I'll be very surprised if the Ahsoka series gets made at this point.
That's something we didn't in the end up getting to cover with Cameron, and I know that you wanted to mention it, and so did I. That it's looking very likely that Rosario Dawson is going to be next.
Yeah, I think she's in got a target on her back.
But whether they'll follow through with that or try and subvert, I don't know, because she is planned to be the head of a show, and she again could the Mandalorian afford to lose two very popular characters?
Well, I think if that happened again, it'd be the end of Lucasfilm. As Cameron said, they're already on a slippery slope. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from here on in. And the fans are fighting back. The fans strike back, if you want to say that.
Yeah.
YouTube, the official Star Wars YouTube channel, they're getting downvoted to oblivion on every new video they release.
Yeah.
All the comments are bring Gina back. You're so insincere, etc., etc. So, I think they've dug themselves a hole. They're going to find it very hard to get out of at this stage.
Only time will tell. Well, let's just have a quick listen to Gina's comment on bullying.
I was prepared to at any point get let go, because I've seen this happen to so many people. I've seen the looks on their faces. I've seen the bullying that takes place. They've quit Twitter, they've quit speaking. They show up to their red carpets and they're depressed and they're sad and there's hardened hearts there. And I was like, you're coming for me. I know you are. They're making it very obvious through their employees that were coming for me. And so I was like, well, then I'm gonna go down swinging then.
Right. Well, there we saw Ayoski's Paddy.
Hold the fort for 2 seconds, Matt. I'll be back. Discuss that clip.
Yeah, well, we saw Gina there discussing basically her colleagues and how she's seen them being treated in the same way, but they've obviously felt they can't speak back. And they turn up at events and they're heartbroken, they're depressed. Christ, Hollywood sounds like a lovely place to work, doesn't it, people? My word. Hopefully Paddy can get back and put the next clip on, because I can't from this end. But I think what's happened to Gina Carano is an absolute disgrace. And I think most fans think the same thing, judging by what's happening to Lucasfilm right now. Online.
Sorry about that. Medical emergency.
Had to see a man about a dog.
Shoot a man, not a dog. So, and then we've then we've got one final clip prepared. I mean, listen, from our point of view, well, I'm not going to speak from your point of view. You're going to speak from my point of view. I've seen from my point of view how this kind of thing has blown up. You know, you have your say on Twitter. I had my say a little bit on our Facebook page, and you know, I got the same kind of treatment to a certain extent. People piling on and that kind of thing. And for me, it's like the bottom line is, you know, you treat people. If you personally treat people with respect, then there's no problem. You know. Yeah. We've all got to breathe the same air, share the same space.
Exactly.
As long as you're not, you know.
I mean, yourself and I, Paddy, as mates, we don't see eye to eye on everything. I'm not going to cancel you though, because we're mates.
But this is the thing. This, you know, it goes back to the whole journalism issue and what Cameron was talking about, you know, the witch hunts and stuff like that. You can't even say speaking my truth, because even you get shit for that. It's like, no, this is my opinion. You know, this is my opinion. This is how I feel about it. Okay.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I'm as full of shit as anybody. If my opinion is wrong in the grand scheme of things, fine. I'll hold my hands up.
Yeah.
But I reserve the right to be wrong, just as I reserve the right to be full of shit, just as I reserve the right to offend people.
Yeah.
If you're offended.
And you've always got that, and everybody should have that opportunity to do that. And not be forced to do that.
Exactly, not forced to do that.
Come around or whatever. I mean, I've done it in the past as well. I've made mistakes and said things where I've thought, well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that, and then apologise and say I've grown a bit, I've learned a bit. Gina Carano wasn't given that chance, but it looks like she was trying to be bullied into that chance. You've got that other clip. Very soon.
Yeah.
Which in this next clip, you can see Disney were trying to force her to say things that she didn't really want to say, and I think they sat her down in front of some people and.
Yeah. Well, that sets us up nicely. Just before we go there, Brian left a comment as well. I think Cameron hit the nail on the head when he said the offended party is being allowed to control the narrative.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it all over the show at the moment. I mean, was it the other day in Liverpool? We had the police stood in front of a big billboard on the back of a truck saying being offensive is an offence.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Being offensive is part of free speech.
Yeah,
you should be allowed to be offensive. Offensive, you know. And the police had to come out and apologise for that. You were dead wrong, you know.
Well, you know, I personally feel I personally am glad that I've not chosen this particular decade in which to, well, not decade, but probably the past year. I'm glad I didn't choose the past year to start putting together my stand-up comedy set.
Yeah,
I just come on stage and not say a fucking word.
Yeah, exactly. How do you be a comedian these days?
I don't. Yes, he's not very well, but I don't even think his illness is the reason Billy Connolly retired. I think he was just like, fuck it, the writing's on the wall, I'm out here now.
Comedy's dead.
It's fucking finished, man, I'm out. Anyway, let's have a look at this final clip from Gina Carano. Can't even say Gina Carano today.
Gina Carano
on
Salford.
The Ben Shapiro show.
So they wanted me to get on the phone with like 40 of their LGBTQ community, not on the phone, on Zoom. And I felt like you're all these people, all your employees are slandering the hell out of me right now. You think I want to get on a video where they can then film it, you know? And I felt very kind of insecure about that. So what I offered them was, you know, the restaurants at the time had, you know, started opening back up. And I was like, let me take, you know, 4 or 5 of them out to dinner, and it'd be a person, You can look me in my eyes, I can look you in your eyes, and let's have a genuine conversation. And I think it's also a bit abusive that you want me to talk to 40 people and hear 40 people like been slandering, like, and maybe not all of them have been slandering me, but a lot of them probably had.
Yeah, that's
a lot of people.
That would have
40
been
people on a
40
Zoom.
people. That's uncomfortable, isn't it? All glaring at you, thinking you're something you're not. Clearly, you know.
But what is that? I mean, is that
bullying,
40
yeah.
people embarrassing you into an apology? Is it 40 people embarrassing you into submitting to play the game, otherwise you're out? Or, I mean, what's the end game in that? I mean,
I don't know.
In what kind of environment are you placed in front of 40 people? You know, yeah. I mean, even in an audition,
sit in that corner, in that corner, and we're all going to shout at you.
Yeah. Even in an audition, you don't get, 40 people. You're not in front of 40 people, are you?
No.
Or a firing squad.
It's terrible. And this is what Lucasfilm are doing to their actors who don't fall in line, really. Okay. She's clearly not transphobic, as the accusation is, being tossed around.
It doesn't look like it to me. I mean, she looks sincere. I mean, that's my opinion. That's your opinion.
Yeah.
If we're allowed to still have that.
I hope so. Not for long. Not for long.
Not for long. Yes. Club Star Wars is going to be cancelled soon. As you can see at the top of the screen there, we've got the Lost podcast.
We're not big enough yet to be cancelled.
No, we're not. Nobody watches this show. It's
one day.
The show with tonight's show with Kamran Pasha and our show with Hollywood legend Andy Heard has been our most popular shows.
Yeah. So have to get them both on again.
Together.
Yeah.
That'll be explosive. Well, I think that probably just about wraps it up then, young man.
I think it does, yes.
Let's just go to the comments again. 1 second. It'd be like Cersei's walk of shame.
Yeah. Well, it would be. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what they're doing to them.
I've already had all my hair cut off, so I'm waiting for mine. We'll walk down you and I can walk down this corridor of Twitter shame, Matt. Have comments hurled at us.
Yeah. Christ, can you imagine? You have a thick bloody skin, honestly.
Absolutely, you do. But coming back round to that thing, like we're saying about these Twitter songs are created and but mostly it's not accounts. It's not. I know you're saying it's not real accounts, is it?
No.
They've not got their picture on. They've not got their real name on it.
No. Who controls these accounts at the end of the day?
They're not real people.
No, and it wasn't Cameron who was saying the hashtag was probably
generated from inside.
Yeah. Which is kind of believable. Twitter is a useful tool.
For me, anything's on the table, man. Anything's on the table. People are capable of anything. So
yeah.
Who knows? But I just about wraps it up.
I think so.
Flabbergasted, fascinating show, and we'll be back next week. Not for more of the same, probably for another 180. We'll come back and do another one of your character studies.
Yeah,
and some more Star Wars news analysis, and possibly got a couple of other features up our sleeves. As we mentioned last week, we are keen to talk to Star Wars fans like ourselves.
Talk to you guys who are watching.
So of course, anytime the show's going on, you can contact us in comments and say, I'd like to join the show. We can send you a private link
and you can
to come in the stream with us.
Shoot the breeze.
However, plan it ahead of time. If you want to come on the show and talk about your particular area of Star Wars fandom, what you love, which movies you love, you're attached to a particular character, actor, whether you're a costumer, you collect autographs, you collect toys, whatever it is. If you want to come on and talk about it, shoot the breeze with us, we love that shit. We have our own particular areas of it. I collect the posters, I collect the autographs.
Let's turn it into a proper club Star Wars.
Yes, it's a club Star Wars. Let's talk about what part of the club you are in.
Yes.
So it's going to be a new focus, a new feature called Fan Focus. So if you want to come and join us on that, please do. Thank you very much, Facebook user, whoever you are. It says Facebook user and it's a thumb and a little rabbit. So thank you very much for that, whoever you are. Just closely related to that, before we get out of here, a little bit of housekeeping. I can actually talk now. The people who are commenting in the Club Star Wars Facebook group or on my personal Facebook page, you'll see a little thing at the bottom of the video where it says, agree to StreamYard to allow you to see comments or something like that. If you agree to that, then I can tell who you are. Or you have to be in our YouTube channel, on the Twitter, or on the Club Star Wars page to be able to see the comments. Otherwise, just agree to it. It's my cousin. All right, mate. I still don't know which cousin it is, but just agree to let StreamYard see who you are.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
you're anonymous.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're anonymous. Anyway, hopefully see you next time. And that's it for us. And we'll be back, hopefully, all three of us, back together next week. So until then, may the force be with you. Take it easy. Stay safe out there, guys. All the best.
Goodbye there.
Goodbye there.